Leo came to consciousness on a floor of cool, white marble. A throbbing ache pulsed from a spot just above his temple, a dull drumbeat against his skull. He pushed himself up, his reflection a hazy stranger in the vast, steam-flecked mirror of a bathroom larger than his old apartment. The face looking back was undeniably attractive, with pale skin and a finely sculpted jaw, but a ridiculous purple lump marred the otherwise smooth expanse of his forehead. He touched it gingerly and winced. This must be why Sterling didn't want him. The thought surfaced, unbidden and absolute. The bump made him look vacant, a little foolish. He decided he needed ice and ventured out of the cavernous suite. The house was a modernist monolith of glass and steel perched in the Hollywood Hills, a silent testament to immense wealth. Every surface gleamed, every corridor stretched into an intimidating distance. It was less a home and more a museum, and he was hopelessly lost. After what felt like an eternity of wandering, he stumbled upon an open door revealing a home office. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering sprawl of Los Angeles below. Sterling sat at a stark, minimalist desk, his attention fixed on a glowing laptop screen. He looked up, his chiseled features tightening into a frown as he registered Leo's presence. He asked what was wrong. Leo explained in a small voice that he'd hit his head and was searching for an ice pack. Sterling's gaze drifted to the swelling on Leo's forehead, the irritation on his face softening almost imperceptibly into something else. The stark incongruity of the injury on such a flawless face seemed to bother him. He told Leo to wait right there. He returned a few moments later, a professional-grade ice pack in hand. As Sterling extended it, a mischievous impulse seized Leo. He clutched his own arm with a pained gasp, claiming he'd heard it in the fall as well, that it was cramping up now. A flicker of genuine alarm crossed Sterling's features before being suppressed. Leo noted with some internal disappointment that his new husband was a true stoic, immune to such an obvious opportunity for some gentle intimacy. He let his lower lip tremble, his eyes drooping with manufactured sadness, and questioned if Sterling was truly repulsed by the bump on his head, asking why else a husband wouldn't help his injured partner. Sterling paused, his expression unreadable for a moment, before he let out a quiet sigh. He assured Leo that he wasn't repulsed. His long, elegant fingers took the ice pack and gently pressed it against Leo's forehead. Leo, who was shorter and currently seated on the edge of a leather couch, had to crane his neck to see Sterling's face. As he shifted, a firm hand pressed on his shoulder, a quiet command to stay still. With his head fixed in place, his gaze drifted downwards. He took a moment to appreciate the fine tailoring of Sterling's trousers and the impressive silhouette beneath. From the corner of his eye, he saw Sterling's jaw clench. A low, gravelly voice bit out his name. Leo realized his intense scrutiny had been noticed and saw a dark flush crawl up Sterling's neck, his ears turning a fascinating shade of crimson. A grin spread across Leo's face. He teased that as a married couple, they should get used to such things and far more intimate ones at that, so there was no need for embarrassment. Sterling's only response was a non-committal hum. After the ice had done its work, Leo stood on his toes and planted a quick, soft kiss on Sterling's cheek, declaring it a reward for a job well done. Sterling froze, his entire body going rigid with shock, his eyes wide with disbelief. Leo, thoroughly pleased with this reaction, noted that his new husband was clearly an innocent. Sterling averted his gaze, flustered, and mumbled something about Leo getting some rest. He added, bizarrely, that it was a hot day and Leo should remember to use a thick blanket before turning to leave. Leo was bewildered. The thermostat in the hall had read a brisk 66 degrees. The man's words made no sense. When he saw Sterling heading for a guest suite down the hall, his good mood evaporated. He called out, asking what kind of married couple slept in separate rooms on their wedding night. He issued an ultimatum. If Sterling walked through that door tonight, he wouldn't be welcome in Leo's bed ever again. Sterling's pace only quickened. He said he had work to do and didn't want to disturb Leo's rest. An incandescent rage filled Leo. He slammed the door to his own suite, the sound echoing through the silent mansion. He heard Sterling's footsteps return. The handle turned, but the door was locked. Sterling spoke through the wood, his voice gentle, insisting he hadn't meant to offend and that Leo should rest after a long day. Then the footsteps receded again. Leo, whose hand had been ready to unlock the door, let it fall. The man was a block of wood. Sleep wouldn't come. The vast, silent room felt wrong, incomplete. An image of a handsome, severe face flashed in his mind. With a sudden clarity, Leo knew what was missing. He slipped out of bed, creeping through the darkened house until he found Sterling's room. Inside, his husband was fast asleep. Without a second thought, Leo climbed into the bed and wrapped his arms around the warm, solid body. This was right. The unease in his chest settled. The itch in his soul was soothed. He fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. The next morning, Sterling awoke to the startling discovery of another person in his bed. He and Leo were practically strangers, their union a cold, strategic merger between their families. Yet he couldn't bring himself to reject the beautiful man who had so boldly inserted himself into his life. Leo was disarmingly endearing, if a little strange. When Leo stirred and chirped a cheerful good morning, "Honey," Sterling found himself responding in kind. He thought the word honey, but couldn't bring himself to say it aloud. Sterling was a creature of habit and immense responsibility. After a quick breakfast, he was gone, swallowed by the demands of his corporation. Leo was left alone in the silent mansion. He wondered what kind of company denied its CEO a honeymoon. Then he remembered it was Sterling's own company. He pulled out his phone, determined to harass his new husband. Their chat history was laughably sparse, containing only the initial automated messages from when they first connected. That, he decided, was not the foundation of a healthy marriage. Someone had to take the lead. He sent a flurry of messages, asking when Sterling would be home and mentioning a sudden craving for a gourmet ice cream cake from a trendy spot on Melrose, punctuating it with a string of kissy face emojis. Hours passed with no reply. A frustrated heat rose in Leo's chest. He typed out a new message, calling Sterling an unqualified husband for leaving his beautiful Omega to starve alone in an empty house. He lamented his misplaced affection and threatened playful punishment upon Sterling's return, complete with handcuffs, a riding crop, and a suggestive meme. A reply came almost instantly. It was a curt apology, explaining that Sterling had been in a board meeting and his phone had been mirrored on the main conference screen. A wave of mortification so profound it made him dizzy washed over Leo. He wanted the earth to swallow him whole. At the office, Sterling was reeling. The messages had flashed across the giant screen in front of his entire executive board. He had fumbled to shut it down, but the damage was done. His employees, particularly the younger ones, were whispering behind their hands, their quiet chatter about the boss's surprisingly spicy private life feeling as loud as a stadium announcement. Sterling took a deep, steadying breath. He couldn't fire his entire board, and he certainly wasn't going to divorce the cause of his public humiliation. After work, he drove to the bakery on Melrose and waited in line for 30 minutes to buy the last signature ice cream cake, along with several other popular varieties. When he arrived home, he found the house quiet. The housekeeper informed him that Leo was sleeping on the balcony. Sterling moved silently, placing the cake boxes in the refrigerator. The housekeeper gently suggested that he should give the cake to Leo himself, noting that the young man had been watching the driveway all afternoon, clearly waiting for him. Sterling retrieved the cake and walked out onto the balcony. Leo, who had been listening intently, feigned waking up, rubbing his eyes. When he saw the cake in Sterling's hands, he gasped with genuine delight. He told Sterling how wonderful he was and, pulling his head down, pressed a firm kiss to his lips before grabbing the cake and retreating happily into the living room. Sterling stood alone on the balcony for a long moment, a slow, unbidden smile spreading across his face. He followed Leo inside and told him that while he was happy to get him anything he wanted, he would appreciate it if the more lurid messages were kept private in the future. Leo, his face buried in a slice of cake, felt a fresh wave of embarrassment. He understood Sterling's point. The salacious talk was fine, as long as no one else heard it. And by extension, other things were fine as long as no one else saw them. He immediately went online and placed an order for a large box of assorted novelties. A message from an unknown contact named Jay arrived, decorated with a heart emoji. It was an invitation to meet at their usual spot the next day at 6. Leo's amnesiac mind, unable to place the sender, scrolled through the chat history. It was filled with flirtatious, explicit exchanges. He immediately concluded it must be Sterling's secret account. It all made sense now. Sterling was a different person in private. The usual spot was a suite at a 5-star hotel. Clearly, his husband wanted to make up for their uneventful wedding night. A jolt of excitement shot through him. He went online again and placed another, larger order for more mysterious little gifts. That night, when Sterling once again retreated to the guest room, Leo was not annoyed but thrilled. His husband was just being discreet before their big rendezvous. He was so excited he could barely sleep. It occurred to him that he, a married man, had not yet seen his husband's naked body, let alone cataloged the quality of his abdominal muscles. It was a gross dereliction of marital duty. He fumed silently until, in the middle of the night, he stormed into Sterling's room and smacked him lightly twice on the arm, berating the sleeping man for being so stingy with his assets, which were now, by law, community property. He then slid back under the covers, placing a hand proprietorially on Sterling's firm chest. He traced a path downwards, over the ridges of his abdomen. Just as his fingers strayed lower, a hand shot out and clamped around his wrist. A sleepy, teeth-gritted voice commanded him to go to sleep. Leo immediately went still. The next day, Leo arrived at the hotel suite, his large box of toys in tow. He was a familiar face, it seemed, as the front desk clerk handed him a key card without question. While waiting for Sterling, he opened the box and began studying the instruction manuals for the various devices, his cheeks flushing. The doorbell rang. He eagerly opened the door to find Sterling, dressed in a sharp, dark suit, his hair perfectly styled. He looked devastatingly handsome. But as soon as Leo greeted him, Sterling's hand shot out and closed around his throat. His eyes were bloodshot, his entire body trembling with a terrifying rage. He accused Leo of lying to him. Leo struggled to breathe, his mind reeling from the sudden violence. He croaked out Sterling's name, asking what was wrong. The air grew thick with a palpable animosity. He realized Sterling's skin was burning hot. He managed to ask if he was having some kind of pheromonal overload, pleading with him to calm down, reminding him they were married. Sterling's grip didn't loosen. He snarled that Leo was his and his alone, that he couldn't be here meeting other men. Realizing rational conversation was impossible, Leo tried to placate him, agreeing with everything he said while slowly trying to project a calming aura of his own. But Sterling's rage was absolute. He shoved Leo backward onto the large, soft bed, accusing him of plotting his death, of being a pawn for a man named Julian. He was baffled. He didn't know any Julian. He had thought Sterling had invited him here. In Sterling's momentary confusion, his eyes fell on the open box of sex toys beside the bed, and his fury reignited. Seizing the opportunity, Leo grabbed the heavy lamp from the nightstand and brought it down hard on Sterling's head. Sterling collapsed on top of him, a dead weight. After a great deal of effort, Leo managed to push him off and call his assistant, demanding a doctor. Then, he took a roll of rope from his box of toys and efficiently tied the unconscious Sterling to the bedposts. Just then, his phone buzzed with a message from Jay. It urged him to act now that Sterling had found him, to kill him so they could be together forever and inherit his fortune. A cold dread washed over Leo. So, Jay wasn't Sterling. He was another man. A man Leo had been conspiring with. His amnesia had erased a crucial, horrifying part of his life. But Sterling had been nothing but kind to him. He couldn't go through with it. He frantically deleted the entire message thread, sent a final, scathing reply telling the man to get lost, and then blocked the number. He looked at Sterling, unconscious and bleeding, and was consumed by guilt. When the assistant and doctor finally arrived, Leo berated them for their slowness. The assistant asked how Sterling had been injured. Leo's anger deflated instantly, and he mumbled that he had hit him. The doctor, taking in the scene, the hotel suite, the bound man, the box of toys, gave Leo a look of weary judgment and lectured them on the dangers of taking their bedroom games too far. Leo tried to protest, but the assistant's jaw was on the floor. It was hopeless. The doctor administered a sedative, and Sterling's feverish temperature began to subside. He advised Leo that as his partner, his proximity would be soothing. Even unconscious, Sterling's hand found Leo's and held on tightly. The assistant watched them, a knowing smile on his face, his belief in their rumored passionate marriage now thoroughly confirmed. Sterling awoke with a groan, his first action to check Leo for injuries, his voice thick with remorse. He apologized profusely, explaining he had lost control and never meant to hurt him. The assistant, seeing his cue, ushered the doctor out. Alone with Sterling, Leo immediately adopted a wounded expression, pointing to the faint marks on his neck and tearfully asking how Sterling could think he was the type to cheat. The sight of the bruises seemed to cause Sterling physical pain. He gently applied a salve, murmuring apologies, assuring Leo that he was good and that he hadn't truly believed it. Leo, satisfied his performance was working and relieved that the incriminating texts were gone, forgave him. Sterling then explained what had happened. At a business gala that evening, his rival, Julian, had drugged his drink with a potent aphrodisiac designed to trigger a catastrophic pheromonal imbalance. Sterling had a rare rejection syndrome, making Leo the only partner whose presence he could tolerate. Julian had taunted him, saying he would die from the overload because his own beloved partner, Leo, was in on the plot. He had produced photos of Leo and Julian together, along with screenshots of their intimate chats, and told Sterling he could find Leo waiting for another man at that very hotel. The revelation had shattered Sterling's composure, causing the drug to take full effect. Leo was furious at this Julian for using him. He told the equally foolish Sterling that if he'd wanted him dead, he'd had ample opportunity over the past few weeks and certainly wouldn't have called for a doctor. He insisted he didn't know any Julian and only had eyes for Sterling. But how, Sterling asked, did he end up at the hotel? Leo, cornered, admitted that he thought Sterling had sent the texts as part of some elaborate romantic game. Seeing the skepticism in Sterling's eyes, he finally broke down and confessed the truth. He told Sterling about the fall, the bump on his head, and the fact that he remembered almost nothing from before their wedding night. He started to cry, real tears this time, apologizing for deceiving him and saying he would accept any punishment, as long as Sterling didn't divorce him. A small, sad smile touched Sterling's lips. He had already seen through the earlier theatrics, but this felt real. He assured Leo he wasn't angry and that they could talk more tomorrow. Back home, the full weight of his forgotten life settled on Leo. He asked Sterling about their marriage, about Julian. Sterling quietly confirmed that their marriage had been arranged, and that before, Leo had been deeply in love with Julian. Leo was aghast. How could he have preferred anyone to the handsome, wealthy, and kind man sitting before him? He swore his allegiance to Sterling, renouncing any past feelings for Julian. Sterling's smile was chilling as he asked if Leo would mind if he had Julian killed. A shiver went down Leo's spine. He quickly advocated for letting the legal system handle it, realizing Sterling was testing him. He profusely reassured his husband of his newfound and absolute devotion. Sterling seemed satisfied. He then confessed that his own distance, sleeping in the guest room, burying himself in work, was because he believed Leo was unhappy and forced into their marriage. He had been trying to give him space. It all clicked into place for Leo. Sterling wasn't cold. He was considerate. A wave of affection washed over him. He assured Sterling that he was more than willing to be his husband. Sterling admitted that Leo was nothing like the person he'd been described as. He found him vibrant, funny, and surprisingly principled. He confessed he liked this version of Leo very much. Leo, blushing, admitted the feeling was mutual. In the following weeks, Leo dedicated himself to being the perfect corporate spouse, terrified of any other forgotten skeletons emerging from his closet. Julian and his family quietly vanished from the social and business landscape. Leo showered Sterling with affection, and though Sterling remained reserved, the emotional dam between them was slowly breaking. The only thing missing was physical intimacy. That barrier was spectacularly shattered when Leo, on a whim, greeted Sterling after work one evening wearing a French maid's costume. Once that line was crossed, Sterling became insatiable. He stopped working late, rushed home from the office, and explored every item in Leo's box of toys with an enthusiastic curiosity. One evening, he emerged from the shower with only a towel slung low on his hips, his muscular torso and sculpted abdomen on full display. As Leo walked past, he accidentally tripped, his hand catching the edge of the towel, fell away. He looked up at Sterling with wide, innocent eyes and whispered an apology, asking if Sterling would forgive him. A predatory grin spread across Sterling's face. He reminded Leo of his own words. After marriage, everything was community property. Life became a blissful, hedonistic haze. Then, one day, a routine checkup revealed the impossible. Leo was pregnant. He was already 3 months along. He hadn't gained any weight or shown any signs. He apologized to the tiny life inside him for having such an oblivious father, then amended it to 2 oblivious fathers. Sterling, upon hearing the news, became even more attentive and protective, doubling his efforts at work to secure their growing family's future. The idyllic peace was shattered at a lavish birthday party for Sterling's mother. Sterling was called away on urgent business, leaving Leo to fend for himself. A handsome, sneering man sat down next to him. It was Ryan, Sterling's adopted cousin. He venomously accused Leo of ignoring his messages and gloated that Sterling had never truly cared for him, that he was merely a placeholder, a pathetic substitute. Ryan said that once Chris returned, Leo would be cast aside. The name, Chris, struck a chord deep within Leo's mind. At that exact moment, A line of text materialized in his field of vision, shimmering like a heat haze. The white moonlight is coming back. The villain will choose him, and the disposable cannon fodder and his baby are about to be written out of the story. It all came back. The system, the mission. He wasn't Leo. He was a transmigrator, dropped into the body of a minor villain in a trashy novel. His job was to be cruel and conniving, to serve as a foil for the main couple. His amnesia from the fall had derailed his entire character arc. According to the original plot, Sterling, the book's chief antagonist, had only been kind to him because of his resemblance to the true love of his life, Chris. With Chris's return imminent, Sterling was supposed to arrange a tragic accident to eliminate Leo and the baby, clearing the way for his true love. That explained everything. His seduction had been so easy because he was just a stand-in. He knew the tropes. He would not be a casualty in someone else's love story. He felt a faint flutter in his stomach, a small confirmation from his unborn child. The white moonlight was due back next week. He had to move fast. Back at the mansion, he packed a bag, liquidated the extravagant gifts Sterling had given him, and left a signed divorce petition on the bed. As he walked out the door, more spectral text appeared, cheering him on. "Run, you magnificent bastard. Run." He settled in a quiet coastal town in Monterey, renting a luxurious beach house and hiring a staff. He was determined not to suffer. He spent his days walking the beach, collecting shells, and talking to his baby, complaining about their deadbeat father who only knew how to sow his seed. 2,000 miles away, Sterling, who had come home from a grueling day of work to an empty house and a divorce petition, sneezed violently. Leo was determined to forget Sterling, but his appetite waned, and a persistent ache settled in his chest. One night, a fierce storm rolled in off the ocean. The wind howled, and rain lashed against the windows. The doorbell rang. Terrified, he ignored it. It rang for a long time before falling silent. Then, his phone lit up with an incoming call. It was Sterling. His voice was strained. He told Leo not to be afraid, that it was him at the door. Relief, potent and overwhelming, flooded Leo. He opened the door to find Sterling soaked to the bone, looking haggard and desperate. He pulled Leo into a fierce embrace, murmuring that he had been out of his mind with worry. Leo pushed him away, his mind still stuck on the novel's plot. He reminded Sterling that they were divorced, that he knew about the other man and wouldn't stand in his way, pleading only that he be allowed to live. Sterling, shivering but with warmth radiating from his hands, took Leo's and held them tightly. He confessed that the sound of thunderstorms terrified him, reminding him of a past trauma. But he had come anyway. He looked Leo in the eyes and swore that the only person he had ever wanted was him. There was no one else. The divorce papers were unsigned. As for Chris, he was Sterling's college roommate, who had been happily married for years and had children of his own. The story Ryan had spun was a complete fabrication born of jealousy. The foundation of Leo's reality crumbled. Sterling, his voice cracking with emotion, knelt before him. He confessed that he'd been intrigued by Leo from their first meeting. He had seen past the villainous act Leo was forced to perform, noticing the small acts of kindness, like feeding stray cats. He had fallen in love with the real person underneath, the vibrant, funny, infuriating man who had turned his cold, orderly life upside down. He said he couldn't live without him and that it was unfair for Leo to make him fall so deeply in love only to disappear. He wasn't forcing him to stay, but he was begging. He then pulled a sheaf of documents from his briefcase. He had transferred his entire personal fortune, all of his assets and properties, into Leo's name. The numbers on the pages were staggering. Leo stared at the man kneeling before him, at the legal documents that made him unbelievably wealthy, and at the raw, undeniable love in Sterling's eyes. The book was wrong. The plot was broken. This man was not a villain. He was just a man who loved him. He loved him, too. He told Sterling he would give him a chance. A 2-year probationary period. A tiny flutter from his belly seemed to agree. The baby needed his father. Sterling's face broke into a radiant smile. He scrambled to his feet and covered Leo's face in kisses, promising to be the best husband and father he could possibly be. The story of the villain and the cannon fodder was over. Their own story was just beginning.